Good evening, one and all, and greetings of the day. Today is the Festival of Lights, and happy Diwali to all the people celebrating around the world. So, today we're here to talk about biodiversity. So, biodiversity is the symphony of life on Earth, encompassing the dazzling array of species, ecosystem, and genetic diversity. It ensures resilience in the face of environmental challenges, provides essential ecosystem services, and contributes to the overall health of planet. So basically, we can say biodiversity is nature's insurance policy against the perils of climate change. So it is a rich tapestry of life that stabilizes ecosystem and sustains our planet. So, as climate change accelerates, we risk unraveling this intricate web, endangering countless species and ecosystems. So, protecting biodiversity isn't just an environmental choice, it's our last chance to secure a sustainable future for all life on Earth. So, let us go ahead and deliberate on how we can do our duty to safeguard it for the well-being of current and future generations. Today, we have two community partners in this program. The first one is GSFN, the Global Sustainable Futures Network, UK, which is a collaborative initiative dedicated to advancing sustainability and tackling global changes within the United Kingdom and across the world. So stakeholders, including businesses, governmental agencies, non-profit organizations, and individuals to collaborate on sustainable solutions. The primary goals of GSFN UK is to involve championing environmental preservation and advocating for social equity and fostering eco-friendly economic development that is socially inclusive. The network frequently hosts events, one of them, such as this, workshops and projects designed to promote innovation, to share knowledge, and to encourage sustainable practices in sectors such as renewable energy, sustainable practices, and green technology. So, through facilitating cooperation and exchange of knowledge, GSFN contributes to the promotion of sustainable practices, the attainment of environmental objectives, and the establishment of more equitable, environmentally conscious society in the UK and across the world. Now we have the next community partner, which is called as IGEN. And IGEN, when we hear that, we know that we know this word. So it is also recognized as Gen Z, and it represents cohort succeeding the millennials. So this generation comprises of individuals born approximately mid-1990s to the early 2010s. So IGEN is notable for its distinctive tech-savvy upbringing, having coming of age in the digital era, marked by ready access to smartphones, social media, and internet. Other features are that they are recognized as individualistic, pragmatic, socially aware, and entrepreneurial. So similar to all these characteristics, our community partner IGEN, abbreviated as Institute of Green Engineers Network, is a network that with a primary focus on promoting sustainability and environmentally responsible practices, particularly in the realm of engineering. So IGEN's objective is to unite professionals, academicians, and enthusiasts who share a deep commitment to green engineering and sustainable technology. They facilitate the exchange of knowledge, just like GSFN, and foster networking and collaboration, and actively engage in research and development. So IGEN frequently initiates educational efforts that are aimed at raising awareness about sustainability and advocates for policies and practices that advance eco-conscious engineering. The Institute of Green Engineers Network also serve as the central hub for individuals and collectives who are into bringing about sustainable engineering practices with the aim of contributing more to a sustainable and environmentally conscious future. It is now for a time for me to call upon Dr. Srividhya Sukumar, who is our program lead, and she's an educationist, consultant, governance advisor, and quality assurance expert for compliance and audits, strategic transformational coach for life and business, mentor for professional development, R&D training specialist, author, columnist, volunteer at many organizations, some of which are UNESCO, UNICEF, Emirates Red Crescent, Al Maktoum Foundation, and Sharjah Social Welfare. She's also a certified life member of World Human Rights Protection Commission. So Dr. Srividhya will spearhead the show by talking about what is COP 2030.
Good afternoon, everybody, and special thanks to Madam Sandhya Balaji for the wonderful introduction, the warm welcome to one and all, and following in steps with her in the same lead that Happy Diwali to one and all again, those who are celebrating Diwali today. Right, coming to COP 2030, it's a conference of parties. It stands the same, the name stands the same. And why do we call it as 2030? Because in line with the SDG goals, that is achievement timeline, that is 2030, that has been set up with all the 30 targets that we're going to achieve through. So with that, we have liaised with two event partners, that is our partners along with us on this platform, that is Global Sustainable Futures. Madam Renuka, who is the program partner, who is a founder of GSFN. Thank you, Madam Renuka, for joining us for all these sessions. Thank you so much. And with her team, with Madam Jessica, and being in the forefront, and also Madam Ranjana Halka, who joins us like whenever she gets time and she's on board. And we welcome also our other community partner, that's IGEN, who has been explained very clearly by Madam Sandhya Balaji. And we extend a warm welcome to the team of IGEN with our program partner, Dr. Ramesh. Hopefully, we will get a glimpse of him next week. And with the program director, Dr. Srividhya Sukumar, and the program coordinators with Dr. Kavita and Dr. Ishwar, ma'am, who has joined us today. Thank you so much, and owing to which, we are just going ahead with the session of COP 2030. So when we say COP, COP, I've spoken about this many times during the session. Once again, I would like to repeat the same. The other meaning for COP stands for policemen, that we are the security who are going to provide security. We just think so. And that's why we call it this as a COP session, such that we are able to take it forward being the warriors of the game. So coming back to COP, as the literal meaning goes forth, it's a conference of parties. It's a series of meetings, as explained by Madam Sandhya Balaji, organized by the United Nations Framework Convention on Climatic Change, that is UNFCCC, where countries and parties to the convention come together to discuss and negotiate international climatic policies and agreements. The COP meetings are crucial in addressing the global climatic change issues and setting international climatic policy goals. They provide a platform for countries to review progress and where parties assess progress in addressing the climatic change and implementing previous agreements and commitments. Secondly, they negotiate agreements. These negotiations often take place during these meetings, leading to the creation of the international climate agreements and protocols. And as we know, the most famous of all these things, being the pilot who is leading the game, is the Paris Agreement, which was adopted at COP21 in 2015. Making decisions is the third tenure that we're talking about. The parties make decisions on various climate-related issues, including mitigation, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, adaptation, building resilience to climatic impacts, moving to finance, support, and for developing countries and the technology transfer. So doing all these things, we need to set targets. That's the whole target that you're working on. The countries may update their emission reduction targets, make pledges to combat climatic change during these conferences. So these COP meetings are annually and are numbered sequentially such that this COP meeting for this year, it is called as COP28, which is going to be held in Dubai. Dubai being the being the central house for this COP28. So that's how these virtual meetings are being liaised with the pre-COP meetings, I would say. These are liaised with us, basically. And that's how we have been meeting people, talking about these targets and these projects, and representation from each country is being headed to on this platform, such that each conference being referred by its number. For example, COP26 took place in Glasgow, Scotland in 2021, and it was a significant event for global effort to combat climatic change, such that this 2030 refers to the 28th Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Frame Convention on Climatic Change, UNFCCC. So moving ahead, what is happening during these COP meetings? What all things that we talk about? We talk about climatic finance initiatives, technology transfer and capacity building, carbon offset projects, climatic education and awareness, climatic research and data collection, policy and advocacy efforts. That means what we have done practically in our zone, such that we are able to share this. It's just a knowledge sharing. So we are able to share our best practices with all local, national, international, and implementing with the implementation of the climatic policies. So moving ahead, we'll be able to work with all governments, international organizations, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and also private companies and other stakeholders. So we are looking for partnerships. That is what is going to happen during COP28. The main objective of COP28, we taking part in COP28, is that we will be able to liaise and partnership with all those people who are going to come here on this platform of COP28, such that in advancing the goals of UNFCCC and addressing the challenges posed by the climatic change on a global scale. So moving ahead, so what is the main objective of COP2030 is that our projects that we are going to work is mainly renewable energy projects, reforestation or afforestation, more related to farming and agriculture when it comes to involved in it, and adaptation initiatives with the local embodiment, which is being considered as building resilient infrastructure, which is required, implementing early warning systems, which are required, and enhancing water resources management, that is more very important and quite indispensable. And in relation to it, energy efficiency programs, these projects improving on energy efficiency programs in various sectors, including the buildings and transportation energy, all these things which are being concerned. So that's how we have arrived for COP 2030 vision and mission, such that enhancing national climatic action plans, facing our core global solidarity, youth engagement, adaptation and resilience of the climatic finance, and limited global warming. So without taking much time, I would like to go into today's topic as such as the biodiversity. As we all know, biodiversity underpins the ecosystem functioning and the provision of the ecosystem services essential for human well-being. So the World Heritage properties are some of the outstanding places on the planet and constitute a significant subset of the protected area system, critical for conservation of the ecosystem and the integrity and the biodiversity. So the World Heritage Convention ensures that global commitment for the conservation of these exceptional places while respecting the culture and the local connections. So what are the two main examples that are being said that as a target is that being outstanding examples representing significant ongoing ecological, biological processes in the evolution and the development of the terrestrial, freshwater, coastal, and marine ecosystem and the communities of the plants and animals. This is one. The target number two is that containing them as a most important and significant natural habitats insight of the conservation of the biological diversity, including those containing of the threatened species of the outstanding universal value and the point of view of the science and conservation. Owing to which we have got eminent speakers who have joined us on board today, and we extend a very, very warm welcome to all those speakers who have joined today. And Dr. K. Gomati is going to speak on the Convention of the Biological Diversity, that is CBD. Dr. B. Tanuja, a warm welcome to you, ma'am. Sorry, Dr. B. Tanuja, who is Associate Professor of Sri Sai Ram Engineering College, International Day at IGEN, is going to speak on Convention on Migratory Species, that is CMS. Thirdly, we have Dale Ann Borjali. She's going to speak. She's a Senior Advisor, Natural Capital Ventures Treasurer of Blue Clothing Initiative. She's going to speak on Ramsar Convention. So fourthly, we have Madam Laina Suryan Singh Badrun. Hope I'm getting her name right. She's a co-founder of AgriTC, faculty member of University of Mataram. She's going to speak on International Plant Protection Convention, IPPC. So fifthly, we have Mr. Blossom Boyo Haruna, who's the president and CEO of Bloom Glitz Light Group, is going to speak on Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, that is called as CITES in other words. A warm welcome to you, sir. He'll be followed by Dr. Pradeep Mehta, who is the state head of Uttarakhand, that is UNDP. He's going to speak on International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources on Food and Agriculture. A warm welcome to you, sir. Which will be followed by Mr. Craig Ari Reuter. He's a director and founder of Ari Water Solutions. He's going to speak on International Whaling Commission, IWC. And last but not the least, we have Dr. Anita Singh, who is an educated and certified internal auditor, who is going to speak on all these factors put together, that is biodiversity lies in group, that is BLG. On that note, it's time for me to take leave and opening the floor for all the eminent speakers who is going to have a wonderful time with us today and contributing towards the main objective and the rationale of today's topic. A warm welcome to one and all once again. Thank you so much. Over to Madam Sandhya Balaji.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Srividhya. Madam Sandri is, unfortunately, she has poor network. So I think I should go ahead and introduce the topic and the speaker for the first pointer.
Thank you.
So, yes, ma'am. So our first topic is Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD. The Convention on Biological Diversity is an international treaty that was established in 1992 at the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Its primary goal is to promote the conservation of biological diversity, sustainable use of its components, and the fair and equitable sharing of benefits derived from genetic resources. The CBD emphasizes the importance of protecting ecosystems, species, and genetic diversity, recognizing that biodiversity is vital for the well-being of present and future generations. It also addresses issues like access to genetic resources, technology transfer, and capacity building to support conservation and sustainable use efforts. The CBD has three main objectives: conservation of biodiversity, sustainable use of its components, and the fair and equitable sharing of benefits from genetic resources. It has spawned numerous protocols and agreements to tackle specific issues related to biodiversity conservation. To speak more on this very crucial topic, I call on the esteemed Dr. Gomati. She is the Dean of Academic Staff College of Dr. MGR Educational and Research Institute, Chennai. And Doctor, I welcome you, and the stage is yours.
Thank you, ma'am. Hope my screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
And sorry for the background noise. It's a lot of crackers is being bursting because of Diwali, and extremely sorry for that.
No problem. Thank you.
So myself, Dr. Gomati, a Dean of Dr. MGI Educational and Research Institute, and happy to be the part of today's session. Today, I'm going to share a few points about the Convention of Biological Diversity. So what is a convention of biological diversity? It's to preserving life on Earth. That's the main motto of the Convention on Biological Diversity. So what about the Convention on Biodiversity? It's an international treaty, and it was aimed at conserving biodiversity and promoting sustainable use of natural resources. Actually, it addresses what are all the threats like habitat loss and climate change, and what the humans done to the all these biological diversity things. Actually, the Convention on Biological Diversity started in 1992 Earth Summit organized in Rio de Janeiro. The marked the formation of an organization called the Convention on Biological Diversity. It was vested with the responsibility of designing and developing more conventional ways to balance the world's biodiversity through sustainable development. So what is actually a biodiversity? The biodiversity is a term, biodiversity or biological diversity. It refers to the variety of all forms of life on this planet. It can mainly be categorized into three types. One is the species diversity. The next one is the genetic diversity, and third one is the ecosystem diversity. So species diversity is mainly based on the number and types of organisms, and the genetic diversity is based on the genetic variation in a particular domain of species, and ecosystem diversity based on the habitats and linked with the ecological process of the organisms. So why the conventions need to be formed? Why they formed? The nature has its, we all know the nature has its way of evolution in terms of extinction, modification of species, and formation of the new ones. But if specific human-made action affect the flow of life on the planet, that can cause severe damage to all the existing ecosystem, and that's how the human have spoiled the entire ecosystem. So the convention started to protect the entire biological diversity or biodiversity. Thus, the Convention on Biological Diversity was formed with 193 countries seeking its membership. So the Convention on Biological Diversity frequently meets and they will do a lot of things. And this was their recent meetings through their website. I saw recently they have discussed about the traditional knowledge and also about the upcoming meeting of the biodiversity in the Geneva, Switzerland. So actually, what are all the objectives of the Convention on Biological Diversity? They have three main objectives. One is the conservation of biodiversity. So whatever the ethnicity of that particular, conserving the conservation of biodiversity, the sustainable use of its components, and the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from genetic resources. These are all the three main objectives of Convention on Biological Diversity. So what are the key components of Convention of Biological Diversity? They have three main components that, as I said earlier, conservation of biological diversity and sustainable use of its component and fair and equitable sharing of benefits. So why the convention has to be started? Why? What threat made them to start a convention? So biodiversity faces numerous threats, including habitat destruction, climate change, pollution, invasive species, and overexploitation. So addressing these threats, it's crucial for the survival of diverse species. So increasing in population eventually increased the destruction, and the comfortable life of man made the deforestation, lot of change in the climate, use of vehicles and pollution. All these made entirely change in the biological diversity. So all these leads to the threat. So because of that threat, they've started a convention of biological diversity to protect the biodiversity. So when we talk about the threat, so what man had made to the biodiversity? So what he has done. So this is Javan rhino. Because of the threat, now the Javan rhino, it's a extincted species. Only 76 Javan rhino is currently available in the entire world. So the next extended species is Emu leopard. Only 100 emu leopards are remaining in this entire world. This is Suma tiger. Only 400 are remain. So we did deforestation. We occupied their spaces. We built house on their land. These are all, these things made these species extinct. So this is the hawksbill turtle. So this is, above slides are example for the extinction of species because of the invade of human and the spoilage of the threat he brought into the biological diversity. So what conservation effort can be made? So what can be made to restore all these things? So the efforts to conserve biodiversity, including the establishment of protected areas, habitat restoration, species reintroduction, and sustainable resource management and collaboration among nations is essential for effective conservation. So unless and until some convention is made or some regular things has happened, we cannot protect. Some treaty is followed, some bylaws are followed, otherwise we cannot protect area, habitat restoration, and species reintroduction and sustainable resource management. So we can prevent the man to invade into the forest. So we can prevent deforestation. We can prevent hunting for unnecessary things. The rhinos are extincted because of the hunting, because of the horns. So it is also through international cooperation plays a vital role in addressing the global biodiversity challenges. The convention facilitates collaborative action and knowledge sharing among countries to achieve conservation goals. What are the challenges and opportunities? The challenges such as limited resources, conflicting interest, and policy gaps, it must be addressed. However, there are opportunities for innovative solutions, technology, and for public awareness to drive positive change. So when these challenges being challenged through a lot of innovative things and technology, and also through the regular meetings, these challenges can be avoided and a lot of awareness can be given to the public, and so that they can also help in promote and develop the sustainability and also protect the ethnicity of the particular region. So that will enhance the biodiversity of the population. The Convention of Biological Diversity has led to significant achievements, including the establishment of protected areas, the adoption of sustainable practices, and the promotion of biodiversity education and awareness. So all these years, they have able to achieve something through, they have found regions, hotspots, and all those things they have found. They have also found out what are the areas to be protected and what are all the sustainable practices to be followed in order to, and also they promote more of biodiversity education, and a lot of awareness is being given to the society. The future look of biodiversity depends completely on global commitment, policy coherence, and sustainable practices. It also requires continued collaboration and innovative approaches to ensure the preservation of life on Earth. So it cannot be done on single-handed. there should be definitely a global commitment should be there, and there should be the policy coherence and a maximum sustainable practices, and it should be the continued collaboration among the society. So with this, I would like to stop my thing, and thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gumathi. That was very informative. I thank you for your presentation. I now call on Dr. Ishrat to give her insightful summarization on Dr. Gumathi's presentation.
Thank you, Jessica, for the opportunity. Thank you, Gomati ma'am, for the wonderful insights about the Convention of Biological Diversity. As you said, the biological diversity has three main objectives. That is conservation of biological diversity, the sustainable use of its components, and the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from genetic resources. And you have also focused on about what are the threats to biodiversity. And you have focused this with examples of the species that like the rhino, tiger, and leopard, etc. This is caused due to the imbalance in the biodiversity that is being brought in by us. So it's very important to have the conservation efforts, not just by this, but the conventions definitely help in this, and the challenges and opportunities. And during this, you have focused that the opportunities that are being provided, especially by the social media and technology, play a vital role. And above all, it's important that we have a biodiversity education and awareness. And all this is feasible and possible only when we have a global coherence. This was what you have summed up. Like global coherence is more vital and important when we want to focus upon this convention of biodiversity. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for joining us in this meet. Thank you. Over to Jessica, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ishrat. Now over to our next topic. We shall be speaking on Convention on Migratory Species. The Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals, also known as CMS, or the Bonn Convention, is an international treaty that was established in 1979 to address the conservation of migratory species and their habitats. Its main objective is to promote the conservation and sustainable management of terrestrial, aquatic, and avian migratory species throughout their ranges. The CMS recognizes that many species migrate across national borders, and their conservation requires international cooperation. It aims to protect species that have an unfavorable conservation status or whose conservation would significantly benefit from coordinated cross-border efforts. The Convention encourages parties to implement measures to conserve migratory species and their habitats, including the establishment of conservation agreements for specific species or group of species. In order to talk more on this very vital topic, I'm introducing the esteemed Dr. B. Thanuja. She's an experienced associate professor with a demonstrated history of working in the education management industry. She is skilled in environmental science, material science, medicinal chemistry, physical chemistry, and organic chemistry. She is a strong education professional with a PhD focused in organic chemistry from Wales University. She is also associated with UBA, IGEN, UHV activities. She is also the CEO and founder of AgSimo, which is a waste-to-wealth conversion, floral waste to viable products. Dr. B. Thanuja, I give you the floor. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for a nice introduction, ma'am. I'm very good evening. Happy Diwali to all. So I'm very proud to be a part of the speaker for COP2030. So it is a very great initiative of conservation of environment as well as ecosystem. So in this regard, I express my sincere thanks first for the COP2030 as well as IGEN. I also express my sincere thanks to IGEN for this great opportunity. So today I'm going to present a talk on the convention of migratory birds. So first of all, I just want to confirm whether my screen is possible to work. Am I audible?
Yes, you're breaking
Yes,
a
ma'am.
little bit, Doctor.
Yeah.
Little louder, ma'am.
Yeah.
A bit
Yeah.
Yeah.
louder.
Okay. Now, is that okay?
Ma'am, slideshow mode. You can change to slideshow mode.
I know. It's fine. But slides are not. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, fine.
So today
Perfect.
am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am. Perfect.
So today, my talk on convention on migratory birds. First, I would like to talk about the importance of flies. Every year, an estimated 50 million birds, representing 90% of the world's 10,000 bird species, split between breeding and non-breeding sites. But unfortunately, each year more of the packages need to complete the journey plan. So why does it
Can I stop you?
birds?
Can I stop you? Can you just do it without mic? Try without mic. Okay, can you speak now and let us see if it is more clear?
Okay. Am I audible?
You are audible, but the same thing. But please carry on. Please carry on.
There
Okay.
is some
Now,
disturbance. Yeah, now it's better. Little you can come forward and
Fine, is the problem. Yeah, now is it okay, I think.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
better.
Fine, thank you. Thank you for yes. So why it is important to conserve migratory birds? Migratory birds are indicators of the state of environment and can help promote awareness and support for actions to address broader environmental issues such as habitat loss, agricultural intensification, and climate change. So threats to migratory birds along the eastern Atlantic byway, irrespective of the route used, migratory birds faces a number of threats with various consequences on the survival and well-being. And the land use changes because of the drought and desertification, hunting, disturbance, diseases and parasites, and climate change. These are all also one of the reasons for the migratory birds. So these pics are just shown. I have taken from the net for the reference. The need for the networks to safeguard the flyways, the international dimension of the threats, and the need for conservation measures beyond national boundaries are compelling arguments for stronger collaboration between the bird life partners on a flyway. Conservation actions at one site or in one country can be seriously undetermined if the necessary action is not taken elsewhere on the flyway. So these are all some CMB project in progress. That is contract signed with MABA, that is October 2010, inception workshops, 7 to 8 April in Dakar, Senegal, project management unit places. So these are some projects in progress for your reference published. So we are expecting the project results as the science and research. The result number 1, improve knowledge of the conservation status, critical sites and habitat requirements, threats to actions required for migratory birds and the habitats in West Africa. And the result 2 is monitoring. Operational cost-effective and sustainable monitoring system, especially to track changes in the status and conservation of migratory birds and their habitats. And the result number 3 is capacity building. Strong capacity in the coastal zone of West Africa for migratory birds research, conservation and management, strong network of environmental NGOs in the PRCM region with capacity to contribute actively to the migratory birds conservation. And result number 4 is local communities, that is livelihoods, participatory conservation of key sites and species leading to improved livelihoods and enhanced conditions for migratory birds. And the result number 5 is policy and advocacy. Lasting NGOs, government, MEA partnerships contributing to improved conservation status of migratory birds and their habitat in West Africa through regional policy and advocacy action. I have here given only one project which is taken in the West Africa, and there are a lot of threats in the migratory birds, and there are a lot of projects which have been taken in various countries. And this is about the fishing, agriculture, logging, hunting, harvesting, the threats happening because of this. And the migratory birds are in serious trouble. That is 127 species crossing the Sahara. 75 have declined in 1972 to 2005. Average decline is about 1.3 per annum. and declines in iconic species common to European turtle dove, common red sturt, and spotted flycatcher. And South Africa of Sahara, decreasing rainfall, climate change that is 10 to 40% of less rain, 2 to 7 degree centigrade rise in temperature, dams and irrigation schemes impacting vast floodplains, and even the dry lands cattle grazing and forest degradations, extensive afforestations, and industrial scale hunting, all the reasons for the migrations. And even the South Africa Eurasia flyaway in 2011 that for the twins have taken dry lands and food plains in Burkina Faso, Ghana, and Nigeria demonstrate actions at imported bird areas, research by BirdLife partners into declines in land use change and promote sustainable land use and agriculture and greening the desert, influence development financing push, influence development and financing and push for EU funds for migratory birds in Africa. And floodplains restorations, dryland restorations, regulations of industrial scale trapping and trading of migrants, and measures to combat overgrazing and woodland degradations. And coming to the Convention of the Protection of the Migratory Birds, so signed by the United States and Great Britain in 1916, was implemented in Canada in 1917 as a Migratory Birds Convention. And in the US in 1918, the conserving the bird protection with the international law, more apt to cover the complexities of bird migrations. The status which lists over 800 bird species did not discriminate between living or dead birds and also granted full protection to the feathers, eggs, nets. In the recent years that followed, similar agreements were also made with Mexico, Japan, and Russia. So because of this threats, sometimes the birds may lose the eggs of the birds became thickening and thinning of the shells like that happened. So it is very important to conserve the migratory birds for the environmental balance. So thank you. Thank you for the opportunity once again.
Thank you, Dr. Tanuja. That was very interesting and quite insightful. I once again call on Dr. Ishrat to give her summarization.
Thank you, Dr. Tanuja, and thank you, Jessica, for the opportunity. As Madam has started with her talk with why is it important to conserve migratory birds? Because migratory birds are the indicators of the state of environment and can help promote awareness and support for action to address broader environmental issues. But as such, the migratory birds are representatives how the climate change is impacting between different countries or across the border. These are the representatives how the climate change can impact them. So Madam has also focused on threats to migratory birds, and it's important to have the monitoring and capacity building. Above all, the local community should be participating in this threat to minimize the threat to migratory birds. Along with this, we should have the policy and advocacy to lessen the impact. And along with it, Madam also has presented the statistics of how the declination in migratory birds is being impacting or has been occurring due to this climate change. And it's important to focus on the convention of migratory birds. Yes, definitely, if we are not focusing about this climatic change impact on migration of birds, it's not just the human beings, but our role also will be impacting the biodiversity, especially the birds, because these are the ones which will be contributing across the boundaries, how and whether the weather conditions are good for everyone. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us and presenting the insights about the importance of migratory birds. Thank you. Over to you, Jessica, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ishrat. Now I shall call on my next topic, which will be on the Ramsar Convention. The Ramsar Convention, which was formerly known as the Convention on Wetlands of International Importance, is an international treaty established in 1971 in Ramsar, Iran. Its primary mission is the conservation and wise use of wetlands worldwide. Wetlands encompass a diverse range of ecosystems, including marshes, swamps, peatlands, and lakes, and they play a crucial role in supporting biodiversity, providing water resources, and mitigating climate change. In order to speak more on this, I shall call on Mr. I shall call on Dr. Sorry.
Hello, it will be Dr. Hans van der Loo.
Okay. I call on Dr. Hans van der Loo, please give us his take on this important topic. Thank you for joining us, Doctor.
Hello. Let me take 1 minute to introduce Professor Hans van der Loo. He is a chairman advisory board for Institution for Integrated Economic Research, and he is a very renowned speaker. And so I will definitely ask him to first introduce himself and talk more about Blue Cooling Initiative, and then go forward with his presentation. So thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Chair. As Ranuka knows, I'm standing in for my colleague Dale Ambrojali. She unfortunately has to be at a sad event today. She asked me to step in for her. We both work on the Blue Cooling Initiative, and it's very much related to what you just said in the introduction about wetlands, although Dale Ann is very much expert about wetlands. But I share with her a lot of work on hydrological ecosystems, which of course are an extremely important part of biodiversity, because water as the giver of life makes our existence possible on this planet. And last month, and I see that Dr. Renica already discovered that, I was the keynote opening speaker at the Climate Change Summit, which was opened by the President of Romania. There were 1,700 delegates in the convention hall, and the organizers say that 827,000 people have followed parts of that conference, two-day conference, on live stream. So hopefully this message did get shared widely, and I've just picked a few slides that I would like to share with you. It is basically, I called it the twin imperatives of biodiversity and biomimetic cooling. Let me perhaps show you the slide that, let me see whether I can move this now. Yeah, which I showed in Bucharest. If this would be the dashboard of the spaceship Earth, then we would certainly say, Houston, we've got a problem. It is designed deliberately that you cannot see the details of each graphic. You can imagine what they are. They like biodiversity reduction. It is acidification of oceans. It's greenhouse gas increase. It's the population increase. It's desertification. What is important about this graph is that you recognize the pattern in all of them. The pattern in all these graphs is that we are right now in an exponential surge upwards. And that is not good, because the water on this planet can have three, I would nearly say incarnations, but let's keep it physically, three manifestations, namely either as ice, as liquid water, or as vapor. And one of the things that we see now is as the climate is warming up, two things are happening. One is the oceans are getting warmer, and that results both in thermal expansions, which gives a little bit of sea level rise, but also a lot more humidity in the air. And that explains the uptick in very frequent torrential rains. In Europe, the average rainfall per square meter is 800 liters per year. A few weeks ago in Greece, 500 liters fell in 5 hours. So that is more than what normally falls in an entire year on 1 square meter. and you perhaps have seen the damage and the ravaging effects that has had there. But this, of course, is not unique to Greece. This has happened in many countries in the world. For your information, the amount of ice on this planet is determined by what is called the Milankovitch cycle. You all know that the Earth rotates around the sun. That gives us the seasons. You all know that the Earth rotates around its own axis. That gives us day and night. But the axis around which the Earth turns or rotates wobbles. Now, that wobble takes a long time. It's not like 1 year or 24 hours. It takes about 20,000 years to complete one wobble from the most upright position to the most oblique position. In the most upright position, the polar zones get least solar radiation and therefore are quite cold. In the most oblique, diagonal position, they are more exposed to the sun, and so there is less ice on the polar regions. So this actually goes up and down, and as a result, it goes from a max ice position to a minimum ice position. Now, I do not know, to me this was new, I did not know this 2 years ago, the difference in ocean levels between the max ice position, but of course the oceans are low because a lot of the water is in the form of ice in the Arctics, and in the oblique position when there's no ice and hence more water in the oceans, the difference in the water level is 140 meters. 140 meters between the lowest level of oceans and the highest level of oceans. Right now, we are actually halfway a position towards the more oblique position of the Milankovitch axis. And already 70 meters of water have been added in the last 10,000 years. So 8,000 years ago, you could actually walk from Amsterdam via a country that does not exist anymore, named Doggerland, to Yorkshire in England. The country that now will face this, you may have read the newspapers this weekend, that Australian Prime Minister has offered to the island inhabitants of Tuvalu that they can actually migrate to Australia because Tuvalu will be uninhabitable for humans. It will become the home to fish as it will actually get flooded. What you see here is basically what would happen if the Greenland ice melt would happen. That is just 7 meters, and it will include cities like Shanghai, South London, New Orleans, New York, Manhattan, etc. But after that, there's another 70 meters to go. Now, what we all share, because this is about biodiversity, is the following. The United Nations have issued the SDGs, and we are great supporters of the SDGs, but there are too many of them to allow people to focus on what is important. They are all important, but some are more important than others. And so this wedding cake representation of the SDGs rather than the wallpaper as the United Nations presented was made by Johan Rockström, a famous client scientist of the Stockholm Resilience Center. And basically what he shows is that the SDGs can be distinguished in 4 different layers. What we did, the Institute of Integrated Economic Research, we added the ship next to it. Because it is very human that we talk, we talked already about what the COP is. Well, that is clearly something at the top. It is coordination, international cooperation, work you do at the bridge. More normal people, of course, work, in their businesses, in their companies. It's the economic activities. Politicians have to make sure that there is a quality society because society supports economic activities. But too few people actually worry and are concerned about the hull below the waterline, and that is the biodiversity. So talking about COP, I actually was speaking on the COP21 in Paris. I have a reasonably good memory, but normally I do not know or remember the exact date, but the 8th of December 2015, I will not forget. Because the 8th of December 2015 at Le Bourget Airport was the day where the Paris Increased Ambition was launched. Very important and very necessary. But I'm a practical man. I worked in industry for 30 years. Ambitions do not cause progress. Only actions drive progress. And the problem of COP21 was that although there was a Paris Increased Ambition, there was not a Paris Increased Action Plan. And that is why things have only gotten worse leading up to COP28. And for your information, already on the 8th of December 2015, the probability to keep climate warming below 1.5 degrees, you can see the red circle there on the graph where it says Paris increased ambition. The dark gray part is the probability of staying below 1.5 degrees, and it already was less than 10%. Today, of course, it is close to zero. And that actually leads me to the next point, that since we have failed with the structural measures that we must still take, because of course we have to tackle the cause, tackling the cause alone is no longer good enough. We are too late. So in addition to tackling the causes, we now also have to tackle the symptoms. And in Bucharest, I use this graphic. Basically, we will pass through the 1.5, probably even the 2 or the 2.5 degrees. Scientists are not clear, but reasonably clear that it will be quite devastating for the human ecosystem in large part on this planet. So this is something we must avoid. Now, the single most important concept that I conveyed at the Climate Change Summit 2023 is the concept of time to effect. If you have a headache and I give you an aspirin, in 1 second you will still have a headache. In 1 minute you will still have a headache. And even in 1 hour you will still have a headache. Hopefully it's beginning to subside. The headache will only be over after a couple of hours. So the structural measures we need to get agreements upon at COP28 are necessary, but the time to effect is too long. It takes typically 20 plus years, even if we would stop with all CO2 emissions tomorrow. Climate warming will still go on for at least 20 years. So what we must now do, and I'm very pleased that also the Jim Hansen report that came out last week actually urged for active cooling. What we need to do, we must shave off the peak of this curve with the treatment of active cooling, in addition to the structural measures that need to be taken, because otherwise you would have to continue doing this forever. I think I spoke last time when I had the honor to be with you what this marine cloud brightening mechanism is. It is biomimicry, because basically the difference between black clouds and white clouds is not the amount of water in the clouds, but the way the water in the cloud is distributed. In a black cloud, you've got relatively few big droplets. That is why it is black, and that is why it rains, because the cloud cannot keep the big droplets against gravity in the sky. And in a white cloud, the same amount of water is distributed as many more, but smaller droplets. And so the mechanism of marine cloud brightening is basically imitating a storm at sea, whereby the water will evaporate, but the salt of the seawater rises up in the dark clouds and changes the distribution of the water in the clouds, making the clouds whiter or brighter, and thus it enhances the albedo factor, or the reflectivity of our planet, radiating back out, solar radiation coming in. So here's my summary. Instead of talking about warming, I call for action on cooling, because talking about warming will not do anything for climate change, whereas action on cooling will. I was extremely pleased, Dr. Ranneke, to see in your invitation on your list that you also attach great importance to education. My current role is to educate policymakers and people in leadership positions in business and in government. But of course, we must educate the young people already. And there are 2 quotes here that I would like to share with you. One is by Charles Darwin, who talked about the survival of the fittest. And with fit, he did not mean strong man. He meant the species that can adapt to the circumstances. And the other one is by H.G. Wells, who wrote, "History is a race between catastrophe and education." And at the middle, you can see this big exponential rise with many of the graphics that I started this short presentation with. And we are now at a bifurcation road. Either we can go left and we will follow the dodo, which of course went extinct already a few hundred years ago, or we go right and we become a talent power, whereby we use the most precious resource we have, namely talent, to overcome the most pressing challenges. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Hans van der Loo. This was an amazing presentation, very thought-provoking, and I thank you for giving us this experience. And I'll call on Dr. Renuka to please give her summarization of the presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And presenting last time and this time, and your time is highly appreciated. I know you are called upon to speak on many stages, and this is our pleasure to have you listen directly, not on a YouTube or something. So thank you very much for spending this time with us. Yeah, you have rightly mentioned that we are in a, forging pathway. What should we do or should we not do, and what to do and how should we do? And certainly that is so important. I like your point that especially, of course, I won't be able to speak on the scientific facts. I'm not so good at that, but certainly I understand that we need to focus on cooling as well. Like whatever we are trying to mitigate, this will cooling part can also be a part of mitigation and also adaptation, how we apply it in our lifestyle and so on, and how we accelerate those things by adaptation as well. And so, yeah, there are plenty of, you as you mentioned, and I don't know, we haven't gone into that details, but definitely you mentioned some last slide with some sort of technical instrument on sea, and probably they might be helping to create that sort of clouds that we need to have. And I assume that those technologies should be more accelerated and applied in everywhere. I especially, therefore, I like, mentioning the background of it, that is a relationship of the ocean and the ice level. And I have seen, plenty of other technologies such as GIS and other detailed AI, generative AI, are helping us to know what are the changes happening at the crust of the iceberg, and when they are trying to break down, there are very minute, like very detailed research is required on that how we can build these cracks and not allow them to crack out of that main part of their ice and so on. And I have seen a few, YouTube, of course, through YouTube, but I have seen few technologies that are working, and plenty of people are working on those, that very detailed research is required. So yeah, a lot of things need to be still explored and experimented, and we should be, have that awareness to accept those, technologies, and allow people to experiment as well. We have done so many, like technology has brought us so far, and we know that there are plenty of failures in technologies, but we have to try. We have to give an opportunity for them to try and then succeed. So, and I completely agree with you that ambitions do not bring results. Actions bring result, and we have to turn all our ambitions to actions, and especially like tackling from the symptoms, which is again medical term, but I think it applies or looks more real rather than having any conceptual idea. So
our climate is very sick, Renuka. Our climate is very ill.
Yes, certainly. And it needs treatment from everywhere. So starting from, as we say that always the cure is better than prevention, like we have to first prevent it, but when it is happening, we have to give them a proper care, cure. But also, nowadays in medical terms as well, they say that you conserve yourself and try to manage yourself. And with the pain, the example which you have said, I have been struggling with the pain from last 15 years, and I got rid of it by myself. Proper posture, proper exercise, proper healthy diet, and so on helps you so much. And that is what we want for our earth. Proper posture, proper treatment, proper health, like taking care of it. And that is what we need to do with our earth as well. And I will stop by saying the last point, which is really, really important: education, education, education. Education is needed at every level, even, of course, and it is more specifically needed for the decision makers. And there is quite a big divide on how scientists think and how politicians think, or any other decision makers think. And we need to bridge this divide, and that is, I think, our main issue at the moment. How I would say, how many researchers go out and speak on to the community that this is the way to move forward. It is rare people like you, and we are just trying what we are doing here. Rare people do this, and again, in a very simple form that is digestible by them. So that is very important. So thank you very much for giving us time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Radhika. That was an excellent summary. And indeed, it's like that. I work a lot with, on the one hand, with scientists. They are very knowledgeable. They know far more than I do. They are my teachers. I stand on their shoulders, scientifically speaking, but they often live in ivory towers, and they often cannot explain complex things in relatively easy to understand terms. But the problem is that politicians are rarely scientists. They studied history or law or economics or whatever. And I suppose that my obligation is that I'm a little bit in between. I'm not so smart that I can do the research that the research do, but I can speak with them because I've worked with engineers and scientists all my life. But I've also worked with the politicians, and I see it as my duty in my life to be that bridge. And that perhaps as a closing remark was a quote from Isaac Newton: we should not build walls between us, but bridges of understanding. Thank you very much. I think I did explain to you that since I have to stand in for Dale Ann, that I have to leave the conference now. That is not out of disrespect. I very much enjoyed hearing the early ones. I will look at it, but I have to go this afternoon somewhere as well. But I did not want to let Dale Ann down. And it was a very pleasure to see all your colleagues again. And I hope we can continue this cooperation as we lead up to COP28. And let's hope the best for it. Thank you very much,
Thank you
Erika.
very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Renuka. Thank you, Dr. Hans. We wish you a lovely day ahead. Still on this topic, I call on Dr. Srividhya Sukumar to talk about cooling with respect to the UAE. Dr. Srividhya, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. Thanks for accepting that request, which I thought it is quite vital to share on this platform. That is, when we talk about the importance of wetlands. And as we all know, the wetlands are vital for human survival. And they are among the world's most productive environments, cradles of the biological diversity that provides the water and the productivity upon which is countless species of plants and animals depending upon the survival. So depending upon that, exactly, basically, what's the convention of wetlands is the intergovernmental treaty that provides the framework of the conservation and the wise use of the wetlands and the resources. Almost 90% of the UN member states from all over the world's geographical regions have accepted this, and they have moved ahead. Now, what is quite excited, I'm so excited to share about this part of the world, that's about UAE, exactly, the convention of the intergovernmental treaty that is provided in that particular treaty is that number of contracting parties is 172. Number of wetlands that we are talking about is 2,496. The total surface of the designated cities, sites, it runs into millions.
And in my country, where I'm representing from today, the United Arab Emirates, since 1976, all this nearly about 14,698 hectares of lands have been literally changed from the convention, and they have been moved ahead. Exactly. And how it has been done, very simple technique. Whenever we see clouds over here across our region, across our country, we do cloud seeding. So when we do cloud seeding, that's a particular phenomena that has been followed exactly, so that whenever we make use of the opportunity of the white clouds which are allowed, and then immediately the cloud seeding is done, it's changed into the moist clouds, and the rain is created in this part of the desert, such that to make this desert a wetland. So this is something which is, which has to be done, which can be tried in other parts of the globe as well. Whenever we see clouds, they can try with this concept or the phenomenon of cloud seeding, so that to bring rain, to keep the moisture up. Thank you, Jessica. Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you so much. I can give the details, but it will go long. I thought, let me just wind up here. Thank you. I really respect the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Srividhya. So before I will move on to the next, I would like to open the floor up to a topic called on Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. So if there's anyone on this call who has any sort of knowledge or who would like to give any insights, be it theoretical or practical, please do let us know. The next topic is the International Plants Protection Convention, and it is an international treaty that was established in 1952 under the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations. Its primary objective is to prevent the spread and introduction of pests and diseases that can harm plants, crops, and ecosystems, with the ultimate goal of safeguarding global food security, and the environment. The IPPC sets international standards for phytosanitary measures, which are regulations and procedures designed to minimize the risk of pests and diseases entering or spreading within a country. In order to speak more on this topic, I would like to call on the esteemed Liana Badru, and she is the co-founder of AgriTC and a faculty member of the University of Mataram. She is a consultant for the Summit Institute of Development, wherein she designed and facilitated possible collaborative research projects between Summit Institute of Development and University of Mataram in relation to food security and human health. In addition, she has served as a liaison officer for the delegation of Japan with respect to social services at the 33rd General Assembly, ASEAN Interparliamentary Assembly. Ms. Liana Badrun, I call you, and I thank you for coming to this call.
Thank you. Can you hear me? But I'm sorry, I should turn off my video due to the unstable connection here.
No problem. We can hear you perfectly well.
Okay.
Just 2 minutes. 1 minute I will take to introduce Liana. Liana is one of the earliest member of GSFN. She has been with us from 3 years now, and she has done several interesting projects in agriculture in Indonesia, working on the ground level with farmers for coffee and vanilla. But
yes.
Probably coffee. And we also had one project on her name, and she is amazing. Like she has her own documentary on her. So I'm very pleased to welcome you today, and we are eager to learn from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Renuka. So let me share my short presentation. Okay. Can you see my presentation here?
We can see, but slideshow, if you can make it, please click on enable aiding and then go editing, and then
yeah, I'm working on it.
Okay.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Okay, so again, thank you, Dr. Neka, for this valuable opportunity. Good afternoon and evening. It's like almost 9 p.m. here. Again, I'm Liana from Agriculture Training and Consulting, AgriTC, representing the beautiful island of Lombok, Indonesia. I will provide a brief overview of AgriTC's long-term plans and ongoing initiative with our supportive farming communities here. So the title would be like opportunity in gaining economic and environmental benefit, the synergy of permaculture and biodiversity preservation and economic growth. It is like unveiling AgriTC's initiative. So in supporting the preservation and strengthening of biodiversity, AgriTC's work for the past 4 years has been concentrated in 5 regions: Sajang, Sapit, and Sembalun located in East Lombok, Santang in North Lombok, and Selen village situated in West Lombok. Broadly speaking, all these area actively engage in cultivation of coffee and vanilla. Considering the highly landscape supported by the presence of Mount Rinjani, there are broadly 3 patterns of coffee cultivation in Lombok. Firstly, the natural coffee orchard landscape, where one can find more than 15 types of plants, and coffee cultivation involves not cutting down existing vegetation. Secondly, there is a polyculture coffee orchard, typically featuring 5 to 8 types of plants with coffee and vanilla as the main crops. This pattern implements selective lodging, where economically non-valuable plants are cut down, even if they are mature trees. Sadly, yes. Finally, in recent years, a monoculture system of coffee cultivation has started to develop. And as for the integrated permaculture pioneer activities, AgriTC has recently initiated these activities in early 2023. So in emphasizing sustainable agriculture practices, the selection of opportunities to develop permaculture techniques is driven actually by several unfavorable factors within these regions. These include deforestation, activities for establishing new coffee plantation in Santang, the ineffective implementation of community-based forest management or CBFF program through multi-purpose tree species in Selen village, and the utilization of unproductive land for monoculture coffee in Sapit, and lastly, the overly dense intercropping system in coffee cultivation in Sajang and Sembalun. These factors undeniably give rise to and have already brought issues of land degradation and reduction farmers' income potential. Therefore, we view the solution to provide an opportunity for the implementation of permaculture as a chance capable of both strengthening biodiversity and household income for farmers. Following the common principle in permaculture, AgriTC also takes similar actions that can be easily implemented by the local community. Here, as you can see, we adopted the polyculture practices, strategic tree selection for biodiversity, integration of animals for holistic system. Here is we introducing the beekeeping and carbon capture trees. The main focuses in the implementation of these permaculture programs are the selection of stratified trees and vegetation layering that must meet at least 2 principles held in AgriTC's work, which are stratified trees should be capable of sequestering carbon and not be felled for a period between 15 or even 20 years in the future. And the adapted vegetation layering should have high economic value to contribute predict income, supporting the farmers' well-being and serving as an incentive for them not to cut down the stratified trees. And if lodging is eventually carried out, it is considered a rejuvenation planting activity. So what has AgriTC done in this area so far? AgriTC collaborates with PT Nusa Tani Baraka. It is a rural agro-industry company here, and with Rinjani Barat Forest Management Unit in the distribution of plant seedling as high potential stratified trees with local climate support, of course, to be developed in these areas. As for the existing plants, AgriTC's work focuses on nursery and orchard management to ensure the cultivation of main crop is optimal without disturbing the existing ecosystem. So as you can see here in our slide, we've been doing like not a lot, but promising one. As for the vegetation layering, there are 3 main high-value economic plants that have been cultivated and will be intensively developed, which are coffee, vanilla, and cardamom. These 3 plants, besides having a high economic value, are also relatively easy to maintain, relatively quick yield, and they need support from the parent trees for support and shade. This strategy has proven effective in encouraging farmers to maintain shade trees to protect their economically valuable plants. Moreover, the selection of shade trees was not only based on their shading utility, but also on their ability to produce high-value fruits. So above all, to support and protect local biodiversity, the entire process growth cannot be separated from the ability to sequester and measure carbon absorption in these areas. In connection with this, AgriTC will commence carbon sequestration measurement by the end of next year, hopefully in all this region that we have been working for. So far, the potential use of the measurements will be without the application of AI. Sorry to say that it is because due to funding limitation, some methods to be employed include soil sample and vegetation biomass measurement. However, it is well recognized that the role of AI and its availability in supporting these activities is urgently needed. Therefore, AgriTC strongly advocates for strengthening and securing agri-climate finance to support the sustainability of this work. Besides that, security in agri-climate finance is crucial for the successful implementation and sustainability of permaculture initiative because it is a long-term investment, environmental and market risk, community and farmer welfare, sustainable practices, and capacity building and training. So to sum up, the initiation of implementation permaculture patterns in AgriTC supported regions is capable of playing the role of fostering biodiversity and effectively combat climate change. Permaculture's adaptability to climate variability and its emphasis on community involvement and education make it a comprehensive and resilient approach and enhancing the economic viability of farming communities. The variety of plants cultivation in permaculture not only contribute to long-term ecological health, but also provides periodic income-generating opportunities. Further, permaculture solidifying its role as a beacon for biodiverse and economically prosperous future. So with open arms and optimism, we welcome opportunities for collaboration and partnership that will support the sustainability of this initiative, especially in the area of solidifying AI utilization, training and capacity building, and risk mitigation strategies that demonstrate the project resilience and adaptability to changing environmental and economic conditions. So I think that's all for the insight of AgriTC's work in enhancing biodiversity through the opportunity of the implementation of permaculture. Thank you, Dr. Naiduka. Back to you.
Thank you, Thank you, Ms. Lana. That was extremely amazing, and I'm extremely grateful for this presentation. Thank you. It was most beneficial. Now I call on Dr. Renuka to provide her summarization of the presentation.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Dr. Lena. I think it was so clear presentation that I don't need to emphasize much, but I would definitely reiterate like few points. Sorry, few points that you have raised. So as an example from coffee plantation and vanilla plantation, which you have worked already, and I definitely agree that permaculture is becoming a lot more popular in many other crops, like in many areas and crops, especially to help producing land to stop deforestation, as you have already highlighted, and the people who are having unsustainable harvesting practices, and also from there, I think towards waste management and creation of ecosystem and as you mentioned about the beekeeping and carbon capture and so on. So there are, it is a range of, advantages associated with permaculture, agriculture, the way it has gone. It also emphasizes the circularity which we can bring in agriculture. And of course, you have also touched on the economic development, that it helps, and that is very important, that it helps people get some jobs and keep their living in a better position, to get a better position in there. And finally, the role of AI, which you have emphasized in the last presentation. Also, we saw that role of AI, and today and in previous sessions also, most of these, wherever we are trying to detect anything or record anything, I think the data will play a big role, and having data, storing it appropriately, systematically collecting it, and then analyzing it for our understanding and decision making. I think AI is going to play a very big role here. And so I think you have covered a lot of points, and thank you very much for being with her. And of course, you have also raised a call for partnership and so on. So anyone who wants to learn more about it, how you can contextualize this knowledge in different part of the world, then do contact Laina, or also to support her in Indonesia and elsewhere. So thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Dr. Renuka. As always, it's a pleasure. Now, moving on to the next topic, it's on the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. And this is an international treaty that was established in 1973. It aims to regulate and monitor international trade in wild animals and plants to ensure their survival and prevent the exploitation of species threatened with extinction. It operates through a system of permits and certificates, ensuring that trade in listed species is legal, sustainable, and does not threaten their survival. To speak more on this very crucial topic, I call on the esteemed Dr. Ishrat Mirzana to let us know more on why this is such a crucial topic. Thank you, Doctor. Please, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Jessica. So, I'm just providing an overview about what exactly is the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species on Wild Fauna and Flora. It is renamed, or you can say it is abbreviated as CITES. So with respect to it, what exactly is the purpose of the CITES? The purpose is to ensure that wild fauna and flora in international trade are not exploited unsustainably. Because definitely we are in the different world, so like in the world we have different weather conditions. Based upon that, we have the different requirements. To maintain the biodiversity always, we need to have the exchange also. But this exchange should be in balance with the biodiversity. So with respect to it, we have a CITES is an international convention that combines wildlife and trade themes with a legal binding instrument for achieving the conservation and sustainable use of objectives. From the various species, plant species, animal species, definitely we have some certain benefits. When we want to achieve these benefits also, there should be a path for it, which should be legally binding. At the same time, it should not disturb our ecosystem. So with respect to it, the convention established an international legal framework together with common procedural mechanisms for the strictest control of international commercial trades in species threatened with extinction and for effective regulation of international trade in others. So even with the species, animal species, in India recently, as we have seen the extinction of leopards, so that is one we have, our Prime Minister has also focused upon getting the wildlife development within India also. So when we want to get any species across cross borders, what are the legal formalities? What is the procedures that have to be defined is defined by the sites. This framework and common procedural mechanisms are now used by 180 countries to regulate and monitor international trade in listed species. This, when we are talking about, there are basic provisions for trade and obligations of each of these parties that are involved in this convention. That is, you have to clearly define the trade procedures and requirements, what are the enforcement measures, how it will be facilitating either parties, and exemptions and special procedures, marking, then qualifications, reporting, and trade with non-parties, and amendment of appendices. What are these appendices? We'll be focusing right now. Coming to the resolution and decisions. So the conference of the parties adopts resolution. This was conducted in 2020 and to guide the interpretation and implementation of the convention and decisions to provide specific short-term time-bound instructions. As of now, we are having 89 resolution and 196 decisions which are in effect. And with the changing climatic conditions and imbalance of biodiversity, many more have to be placed in place. So coming to the various appendices, they are classified into 3 categories. First one, Appendix 1, is nothing but the species that are threatened with extinction, which are or may be affected by trade. So the commercial trade in wild taken species is generally prohibited with respect to this Appendix 1. In this category, we have 625 animal species and 301 plant species. Similarly, when we talk about the Appendix 2, we are having species not necessarily threatened with extinction, but for which trade must be controlled to avoid their becoming so extinct, and species that resemble species already included in Appendix 2. And the international trade is permitted, but at the same time, it is regulated. Under this category, it is the biggest category, that is 97% of the total list of sites, 4685 animal species and 29,105 plant species are included. So this is the one, if we are not controlling this, then we'll be making all the species under extinction. So to avoid this, we have to go with the regulations. And the third category is the species for which a country is asking parties to help them with this protection. And international trade is permitted but regulated. And under this category, we have 147 animal species and 119 plant species. And the species that are not in trade, okay, out of 34,782 listed species, some of them are animal species and they're appearing in the trade, but fewer are allowed to have shipment worldwide. And during this, everyone is accounted. Whenever you're doing something trade, you're accounted to the sites about the transactions that are occurring. And sites permits and gives the certificates. The sites regulates the export, re-export, import, and introduction from the sea of life and dead animals and plants and their parts and derivatives through a system of permits and certificates. These permits or certificates may only be issued if certain conditions are met, and which must be presented when leaving or entering a country. So it's important that we stop the illegal trade because we want to maintain the balance. And for this one, we should have a collaboration and cooperation at the national level for the implementation. So we have to have the resource sectors, customs, police, judiciaries, the stakeholders, even the private sector, all should come together if we want to really protect our fauna and wildlife. How this site works. we have a common procedural mechanisms wherein the similar rules and regulations are defined, and you have the trade requirements, the authorities being involved, what are the procedures should be followed, and at the same time, the same should be documented. For this one, we have the conference of the various parties, wherein we have the standing committees which work together so that they take into account the various animal committees and plant committees. And there are NGOs, IGOs, all the sectors have to come together. This is how the structure of sites can be working together. And when we say trade with non-parties, it's about the export or re-import or import from a non-party comparable documentation issued by the competent authorities, which substantially conforms with sites requirements for permits and certificates may be accepted. So it's not just the government, but some authority has to work. Like if we talk about medicinal plants or something, then in that case, if we are importing, then in that case, we can talk about trade with non-parties. I can summarize saying that CITES is an international agreement between governments aimed at ensuring that no species of wild fauna or flora is unsustainably exploited for international trade. The convention established the international legal framework and common procedural mechanism for an effective regulation of international trade, especially with respect to the Appendix 2 and 3 species. And interagency and intersector collaboration is essential for the effective implementation. So as NGOs across the borders, we need to come together, even when it's not about just the biodiversity, because biodiversity, one of the important constituent in that are wildlife and the fauna. So we need to work together so that we can maintain that biodiversity balance. And this conference on the parties is the ultimate decision body in the CITES. So thank you all for your patience hearing. So for this one, I can say that legal trade can be beneficial for conservation of wild species and for livelihoods. Whereas if we see anything illegal trade, then it can pose a serious risk to the conservation of the wild species. So let's come together to protect our flora and fauna, at the same time, the wildlife. Thank you. Over to you, Jessica.
Thank you, Dr. Ishrat, for this eye-opening presentation. I'm grateful to have your presentation. Thank you, Doctor. And now I call on Dr. Srividhya Sukumar to provide the summarization.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Jessica, and thank you, Madam Ishrat, for the last-minute chip and the impromptu presentation. And to duly comment on that, really, I couldn't believe that it was a last-minute preparation because it summarized the whole thing, isn't it, Jessica? True. Thank you, ma'am. Due thanks for throwing light upon the sites exactly with the brief of the conference of starting from the conference of parties and the standing committees which are being involved in it. When it's standing committees, you have very clearly briefed about the animal committee and the plants committee as well, talking about the appendices and the resolutions and the decisions and the reservations with all the notifications, try to give out examples with trade suspensions, strategic visions, and etc., and also the rules of the procedures which are being involved in the intersessional work, and also the rules of procedures with providing it to the examples of the rationale. Thank you so much, ma'am. We value your time and we value your presence today. Thanks for chipping in. Thank you. Thank you once again for chipping in the last minute. Thank you so much. Over to Madam Jessica. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just take a minute here. Thank you, Dr. Ishrat, very well presented. And I just want to highlight the importance of this trade and what you mentioned, because it is, what I understand, that nature was made before we made all these national and international, boundaries, before we started trading. And therefore, I think we have to now appreciate that nature is everywhere. It is beyond our boundaries, and we need to take care. And also now it applies to us in our personal lives, like when we are flying from one place to another. And for example, you have purchased something, and especially like I have my personal experience with elephant teeth, which is ivory. It is called ivory, and it is a traditional thing in India, that ivory bracelets are worn by everyone in India. And now it is a ban that you cannot carry from one place to another, and unless you prove that it has been so sustainability and so sustainable and so on. So it becomes a question of how you can move that ivory bangle from one place to another. So it now these treaties, and therefore these are so important for us also to know and get involved in it, and what you can carry and what you cannot carry. Even the smallest plant like tulsi or other plants which are herbs, called herbs, you cannot transfer them from one place to another. So you have to be very careful about these things. So of course, and the biodiversity and all that has a medical value as well, and especially the biodiversity value as well. So I just thought that I will share that it is so important that it touches our own life as well. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your inputs. Thank you.
Thank you again, Dr. Ishrat, Dr. Renuka, and Dr. Srividhya. And now I shall move on to the next topic, which is International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture. And this is an international treaty that was adopted in 2001 under the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. And it addresses the conservation and sustainable use of plant genetic resources that are essential for food security. The treaty recognizes the importance of preserving the genetic diversity of crops and other plant species used in agriculture to ensure food production and adaptability to changing conditions. To speak more on this topic, we are pleased to invite Dr. Pradeep Mehta, who has a doctorate in forestry with approximately 25 years of working experience in the field of research and development sector on issues related to natural resource management, sustainable agriculture, food security, climate change, value chain analysis, and development. He has also worked on renewable energy, energy efficiency, fresh water, citizen science, and amongst many other things. His key areas of interest are sustainable livelihoods, conservation of biodiversity, sustainable agriculture, indigenous food systems, fresh water, clean energy and climate change adaptation and preparedness. He is the recipient of the Hallbass Hall of Fame Award from Alfred Nobel Museum for Best Sustainability Report in 2021. Dr. Pradeep, it's an honor to have you here, and please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jessica, and hello, everyone. So I'll be talking about bees. I think one of the speakers touched upon bees, and I'll be elaborating more on the indigenous, practices of bees conservation in India. And I call the honeybees as the guardians of our planet while we are talking about, biodiversity, and their role is very, important when it comes to biodiversity conservation of mainly flora. So the importance of
Dr. Pradeep, thank you very much. I just want to interrupt. Whenever you have a time, you please also share what you do with UNDP and how you manage all these expertise. Please,
sure.
Thank you.
I think in the end, I will touch upon it for 30 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. So why I call them the guardians of the planet is because of the importance of bees. Environmentally, 66% of the angiosperms, require animal pollination, and bees play a very important role in, pollination. 35% of the crop production is dependent on insect pollinators, and bees are the main pollinators. They also serve as the bioindicators of the state of many environments, and more than 100 crop species that provide 90% of the food supplies for 146 countries. 71 are bee pollinated, and this is by FAO. And The total economic value of crop pollination worldwide has been estimated at the rate 156 billion annually, and this is a figure of 2009. But all these studies that I've cited over here, these are, I think, of 2000 and 10 and all. But Einstein, long back, he has mentioned that if bees vanish from this earth, then man will vanish within 4 years. And that is the importance of bees in maintaining our food security and the biodiversity of this planet. Coming to the indigenous practices, today we are talking about nature-based solution, ecosystem-based approach. But I think our ancestors were very, they were very intelligent, and they used these nature-based solutions in whatever practices that they were doing. And here what you see, these are log hives, all log hives. So what the indigenous people have done, they have seen the habitat of bees, in the wild. They mainly make their hives in hollow wooden, logs, and they have taken that from there and made an artificial habitat where they rear the bees. And the rearing of the bees is not for, meeting their needs. They are not there to extract everything that, is produced by the bees. And they are not being greedy. So they know which season they don't have to take the honey from them. So during the winters, they will leave the honey as such so that the bees can, have it, because the bees actually produce honey for their own consumption during the lean period. And we, the humans, are the honey robbers. So this is a unique way of, bee conservation and bee rearing. And here is another method that these indigenous people use is the wall hives. And you can see here in the lower side, you can see a rectangular box with a hole. And this is part of the architecture. And what they do is they put a beehive inside, when they are making the houses. And this is mainly in the lower floor where they keep their livestock. So it keeps the beehive warm. And also they are made up of wood, the locally available wood. So it gives them a very conducive, habitat over there where they can rear. Here is the testimony of, two beekeepers. And they say beekeeping is a hobby and bees provide pollination and honey, which is used as a medicine. So they definitely know the importance of bees as pollinators. But at the same time, the honey is used for medicines. So it's not like for daily consumption, but it is used as a medicine. And because these villages are near the forest ecosystem, so at different season there is different flora, and these indigenous people know that which flora is good for which kind of illness, and they use it accordingly. Here's another say testimony that the honey is used as offering in temples and beneficial for our health. So it is a holy food that the beekeepers and the locals, they use it for. The importance of indigenous beekeeping for the indigenous people, definitely it is a high value food. Medicinal use, so they know that it is good for cough, fever and all. So because they don't have these medical facilities, so they have these local solutions. Holy food, it is offered in the temples and all, and then it is served as a holy food. Income generation, so people we have visited few villages where people use barter system. They exchange honey with other crops, and honey definitely gets a better price or a better barter than other crops or other say products. And ecosystem services for food security, so definitely by providing pollination, it does that. And it maintains biodiversity, not only farm biodiversity but also the wild biodiversity. And the main challenges, for these kind of practices is, number one is the changing agriculture. So very, rapidly, the diverse agriculture or the traditional agriculture is being replaced by monoculture crops like apples, kiwis, and others. The non-transfer of knowledge. So the new generation is not willing to, accept it. They're moving out of the village. extraction method is very crude because this is the hives, especially in the log, are not in frames, so it's difficult to extract the honey. The production is low, so in a year they hardly get 2 kgs of honey, but most of it they leave it for the bees. Bee migration is taking place because of the change in climate, and climate change is one of the important factors now which is impacting their population. So I'll touch more upon the impact of climate change. So the changes in crop diversity is happening because of climate change. There are many crops which are unable, which can't grow in the changing climate. So people are moving from one crop to the other. Phenological changes in the wild flora. So the flowering pattern has changed in the wild because of the climate change. Sometimes the floral species are, they're flowering in December, sometime in March, April. So the bees are not getting their nectar and their food. And extreme weather conditions. So we have been experiencing extreme weather conditions because today the world is talking about climate change, but here in the Himalayas, there are already evidences of climate change and extreme weather conditions. There are, prolonged days of rainy season. There are cloud disasters. There are also heavy snowfalls, and in places where there used to be snowfall, there are very little snowfall. And migration of the bees because of habitat loss, because of less flora, and also the changes in the housing architecture. The houses I showed were traditional houses, but now because of climate change, people want, more firm structure. They are moving into modern architecture where there is no provision of bees. So there is a definite habitat loss. What is the way forward? Definitely, we need more data. We need more research, mapping and documentation of these traditional practices, awareness among the communities that, whatever these traditional practices are there, and they are of global importance because they are not only rearing the bees, but they are conserving one of the most important species of this earth. And the promotion of bee flora, as part of our policy, for horticulture, we can promote these bee flora, which can be planted in the borders, in the fences of the gardens, and even in the wild. These kind of flora can be promoted, and promotion of these sites, these important, indigenous practices where people are rearing bees in these traditional ways. It can be promoted as national importance of agriculture heritage site or the global importance agriculture heritage site, and it can also promote tourism. So that is all from my side. But as Renuka mentioned that, what we do as part of UNDP. So here I'm heading one of the state in the mountains. It is in the north of India, Uttarakhand. We are providing technical support to the government, and we are implementing their projects. Mainly, we are working on SDGs, SDG localization, and SDG acceleration. And plus, we are also helping the government in skill development programs, disaster management programs, and also taking SDGs to the local communities by working with the panchayats, which is the governance at the lowest level, at the village level. So that is all from my side. Over to you, Jessica and Renuka. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pradeep. That was extremely wonderful. And if I were to take the opportunity to summarize, I would say that from your talk, we can understand different facets. We have the environment, we have the indigenous peoples, and then we obviously have the sustainable source for both. And if we first look at the environment, we can see bees are one of nature's most efficient pollinators. They help plants, including many of the crops we rely on for food, to reproduce. And this pollination process is essential for the growth of fruits, vegetables, and nuts. And without bees, our food production would be seriously compromised. So they are key players in maintaining biodiversity and ensuring our food security. But it doesn't end there, as we can see from your presentation. Bees also contribute to the environment by supporting various ecosystems. They help to pollinate plants that provide habitat and food for other wildlife, and therefore they create a delicate balance in nature. And then if we move on to your point on indigenous peoples, we can see many indigenous communities have relied on traditional knowledge of beekeeping for generations. And these bees provide them with honey, a valuable food source, and other bee products, for example, let's say beeswax or maybe even propolis, which have various uses, including medicinal and cultural applications. And this practice of beekeeping also holds, I would say, a cultural significance for many indigenous groups, as I got from your presentation. And in addition, these bees can be a sustainable source of income. It's possible for these communities. And they also offer economic opportunities. And through your presentation, I can tell it is crucial to remember bees are facing numerous challenges. And then these are habitat loss, pesticide exposure, and of course, climate change. And these issues not only affect the environment, but also livelihoods. Through your presentation, I can conclude that bees are essential to environmental sustainability and are deeply intertwined with the well-being of indigenous communities. Protecting and supporting bee populations is not only a matter of preserving our ecosystem and food sources, but also respecting the traditions and cultures of indigenous peoples who have coexisted with these remarkable insects for centuries. So let's all appreciate the significance of bees and work together to ensure their survival for a more sustainable future. Thank you again, Dr. Pradip. I'm grateful. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
To go on to the next speaker, we are talking on International Whaling Commission. And this is an international body that was established in 1946 to manage and regulate whaling activities worldwide. Its primary purpose is the conservation and sustainable management of whale populations. And over time, the IWC has shifted its focus from regulating commercial whaling to the conservation of whales and the management of whaling for scientific research or Aboriginal subsistence. To talk more on this topic, we have Craig Ari Rothliner, who is the director and founder of Ari Water Solutions. He has over 15 years of experience in developing and implementing new, highly disruptive mass water filtration technology. And this technology uses the existing stormwater infrastructure to address urban waterway pollution and opening up stormwater as a future water source, working towards water security. His core competencies include invention, innovation, product development, and relationship building with various stakeholders. His company has successfully completed 8 years of in-the-field testing with 6 different local councils, 5 years of testing at a large government-owned public marina and other applications. The science backing his company's technology was paramount during the journey, with a joint industry PhD carried out at Curtin University, which is the top 1% globally, that won the coveted Chancellor's Award for Science and Engineering. So I call on Dr. Craig Ari Rothliner, so please take the floor. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Renuka, can you all see my screen?
Hello. Yes, we can see your screen and you can go on the slideshow, but I will take a minute to tell people that today you were flying and on during the flight also you were just worried that you would be how you would reach in time and present this. So I highly appreciate your enthusiasm of connecting with GSFN. And also here I must mention that Greg is also one of our earliest member and he has been with us. He has always presented his work. Like every year he comes with new things and presents with us. So I'm very grateful to have him. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
and
Dr.
also,
Renuka.
I think you are a recent UN ambassador for water, isn't it? Congratulations.
Yes, well, thank you. I've actually just had 5 hours on the plane to come to Sydney. I've been asked to present for the Engineers Australia annual symposium. And yes, as you mentioned, I've just been asked to become a UN water ambassador, which is a pretty big deal. And I'm very proud that we're getting that sort of recognition now. So hello, everybody. And what I'm going to talk about today is we have a lot of problems globally, but the biggest problem that we face is the public are being told that climate change is our biggest threat. In fact, climate change will make life very uncomfortable. It will force a lot of people to move. It will be a big disaster. But the real disaster we face is the toxification, acidification, and deoxygenation of the ocean. And to put some context to that, between 55 and 85% of all oxygen on Earth is produced by the ocean. Today, we know that over 30% of the ocean is dead, not producing oxygen, not producing food. We also know that only 50% of the ocean is producing krill, the second stage in the marine food chain. And finally, we also know that the ocean is a 26% carbon sink, but now 30% of it is dead. It's actually playing into climate change effects. So I'm going to talk about stormwater, and I'm going to do this fairly briefly because I know, here we go. So here we have it, stormwater, agricultural and runoff, and sewer and wastewater. The biggest problem with the wastewater is today in 2023, we are still pumping over 80% into the ocean completely untreated. And when we start talking about female estrogen, this is now turning global fish stocks female, and there are a lot of other human effluent issues that are causing marine problems. Now, let's just talk about stormwater in the urban environment first. Rainfall is our only free source of water globally. And up until now, we have not really harnessed it. It's sort of been there and we get wet, we put up an umbrella, but that's about where it stops if you talk about a global scale. And where I've always, I've been doing this for 15 years, and where I've always seen rainfall as an enormous water source that currently washes down the drains into the unprotected stormwater infrastructure, transformed into a contaminated wastewater that is killing our waterways and killing our ocean and contaminating our groundwater as well. So the reason, everybody, we see these leaves and trees and bits everywhere. The amazing thing is I talk to a lot of people and they say, well, the vegetation comes off, I might just close my camera down, comes off, it is natural, so therefore it can't hurt the waterways. It's actually the exact opposite. What happens is this vegetation enters the drain where there's normally moisture present. Within 3 days, this anaerobically breaks down. And what you have is a whole lot of rotten vegetation. Because it happens over time, there's actually various layers of the vegetation and rubbish that's blown in by the wind and carried by the rain. And as it rains, the water falls in from a height, stirs it up, releases phosphorus and nitrogen, tire, rubber, hydrocarbons, heavy metals, and some of the physical waste carries it down to the pipe, to the next drain where the same thing's happening, and the next drain and the next drain and the next drain. By the time the water gets to outfalls, it's so toxic it kills everything. Now, I've opened about 16,000 drains around the world, and this is what I see. This is our water infrastructure, and we wonder why we've got these problems. Major cause of flash flooding, major cause of mosquito habitat, which is a very big problem globally as we are facing dengue travelling around the world, now Japanese encephalitis, Murray River encephalitis, Ross River virus, the list goes on. Now, when I open drains, this is what I see. Number one, look at the colour of the water. This is meant to be stormwater. And number two, look at the mosquitoes. This is a huge human health disaster right underneath our feet. Now, the interesting thing about this, mosquitoes don't care where they live. Let me tell you, the politicians all of a sudden cared when I showed them that video. Parliament House, they were not impressed. So where we've now gone is from mosquitoes to plastics. There is this common misconception that developing nations are responsible for plastics in the ocean. It is so out of reality, it's ridiculous. I've found plastic in every drain I open. If you go to your coastlines after rain, go and do a beach cleanup. This on Australian beaches, it's Australian plastic. It's not Indonesian plastic. On Indonesia, it's Indonesian plastic, Indians, and so forth. There is some transfer of plastics through the Great Ocean Garbage Patch, but the reality is developed nations are as responsible for plastic in the ocean as developing nations. Now, this is where it even gets worse because governments do not admit things are wrong unless they have to. They are putting these signs up everywhere because the waterways have now become so toxic, it's actually a human health hazard. And this is at a global scale. So we don't interact with our rivers anymore. We don't have holidays by the rivers or water skiing. Everything is very much slowed down because people are aware that these waterways are toxic. Now, the toxicity, this is I believe, going to be the next major global health threat with insidious brain diseases. So cyanobacteria is naturally occurring in water, but it needs a deoxygenated state and a high nutrient load to feed cyanobacteria. And we have provided those exact conditions. So cyanobacteria is now considered triggers for dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. And as of last week, a paper was released by one of the top MND professors in the world who said we need to really quickly look at at cyanobacteria and its relationship to MND. The common sense is it's a neurotoxin. Now, what's even scarier is another paper's been released where they found cyanobacteria particulates alive in the air within a 16-kilometre radius of the lake. Now, we're finding Parkinson's and Alzheimer's clusters in Australia. They are in Europe. I'm not sure about India. I haven't done enough work on that yet to actually have a look at it. And other countries are all facing this, but governments are hiding it. Media is hiding it. And this needs to come out. How do we fix it? Well, there's only an in and an out on a stormwater infrastructure. It's the largest underground infrastructure we have. It's the most expensive to replace. It's the most critical because we can't settle land without it. So the best place to capture all of this waste as it is the entry point. So what we've done here, you can see these devices, we make suit any type of drain, and that can be the middle picture down the bottom, construction waste. The one to the right of that is a very large unit for construction waste. Funny thing about stormwater is the lid on this one here has no means for picking it up. It's an 80-kilo lid, and stormwater has been so far out of everybody's brain that they put lids on that you can't lift up. Now, that just doesn't make any sense. So if you're going to treat this at source, the next problem we've got is the number of drains. So we've formulated a service that we can do this in 5 minutes, which is critical. It means we can service over 100 drains in a 24-hour period. What we're also doing here is we're looking for the reuse of water. Water filtration systems up in the top right here. This is a complete system that's being set up to reuse water in a firefighting training facility. We filter the water, we polish the water of hydrocarbons with another product, which you can see in the far left corner. These wash bay drains are, 90% of wash bay drains are connected to stormwater infrastructure. Now that means all the chemicals, all of the waste they're pumping down the drain is going into our waterways. So now we can stop this. Construction waste is a major global pandemic, if you want to call it that, because the construction industry, sorry, I'm on the wrong video, the construction industry have decided and been using the drainage system as a free rubbish bin forever, as long as we've been building. Now that is just in the process of being managed. So Multiplex, Brookfield Multiplex is a $66 billion Canadian construction company, and they have now taken on our product globally. As we roll out around the world, they'll be using our product to stop this from going into the infrastructure. The vegetative waste that I was talking about, this is what's killing the waterways. But now this is an actual opportunity in waste to energy, in biome for soil. All sorts of technologies are now coming forward, so this waste product becomes valuable. This is basically how the device works, and I'm getting to the end of this. How much more time do I have, Dr. Renuka?
Well, I think if you want to stop, that's fine. And conclude.
I'm nearly finished. I'm nearly finished now.
Perfect.
But I just what we have here is this blue material. This is the biggest innovation in filtration in about 50 years. We have had traditional filtration and screen filtration. 1 square metre of our material will process just over 3,000 litres per minute, filtering to 63 micron, which is about 1/8 the size of a grain of sand. We then built a centre into the material, meaning we can reverse flush it and reuse it. There are legal implications coming for governments around the world. They are responsible for our health from infrastructure they are responsible for. Now, I've spoken to global insurance companies that insure councils and municipalities around the world. They're not aware that they don't proactively manage stormwater. They're not aware of all of these issues. So this is going to become a future problem for governments at a global level, and it's not far away. The biggest thing is that what WEF a couple of years ago put water to underpin the other 17 SDGs. If we don't have water, there's no poverty, there's no hunger, there's no humans. It's very simple. And now rainfall, if we can when we clean the water at source, we've already got this fantastic infrastructure in the ground. Capture the waste as it goes in. That water we can now reuse in a number of different ways. Managed aquifer recharge. We're actually looking at a project now where we're going to connect it to a wastewater, semi-desalination plant and turn rainfall into drinking water to supplement other dams and things that we have. This water in the living environment is killing us. The ocean is killing us. And it's just because we're not removing the waste. Now we can. This is the last slide. I normally ask, are there any questions? And I also say, what is wrong with this picture? Does anybody like to stick their hand up and say, what is wrong with this picture? That's okay. I will give you the answer. We have become so accustomed to water contamination over the last 50 years that we look at that picture and we can't see that the water's green. The water is green. That is extremely unhealthy for us, all the marine life, bird life, biodiversity in general. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Renuka, I've got another presentation coming up very shortly. Thank you all for your time. If I can be of assistance in the future, please let me know.
Thank you very much, Greg. Your intervention here is very helpful. Your presentation is very intelligent and intellectual, inspiring us to do something. I would just like to say one thing, that yes, you have focused on solution, but I would say a lot of work is required in the awareness also, that where we put our waste, how we manage our waste, how we store our waste and all that. Of course, man-made waste can be within our control, but this is also more about nature waste, isn't it? Like due to the wind and other things which are not in our control, and therefore it is a huge problem. But also I wanted, and again, as you showed in the last picture, no one was able to understand what was wrong in it, because we are not educated for those things. And with the increase in urbanization, these problems are going to ever increase, not decrease. And also, again, at the same time, we are advocating for nature-based solution. So again, just only having a nature is not going to solve the problem. We have to think of a way how we can use the nature also in a very systematic way, that it does not increase the problem, but be a solution to our problem. So there are plenty of this. And you also spoke about government's responsibility, insurance, and all regulatory framework that needs to be developed, and so on. So that's a very good overview of what's the problem is and how it is important or urgent to address it. But also, I have one question that have you tried to address the problem at source, in the sense of, like, of course we can't control wind and water flow, but when there are storms and other things, have we tried any other issue? But that can be a part of a conversation next time, and especially with the household also, like and because of the plastic you mentioned, that how aware and how educated people are, and how they can distinguish all these, separate all these waste from the source. That is the main thing we need to still focus on. So thank you very much for your time, and good luck with every future, your program today and in near future. Thank you very much.
Renuka, just one last thing. The good news is that we've now engaged with a $5 billion waste management company, because we need the waste management companies to carry out the servicing, deal with the waste. There are so many opportunities in the waste management field now to start using this waste for our benefit, that if you have waste management companies you know of that would be interested in having a talk, please pass them through. We're here to fix this problem at a global scale, and we've got roughly 10 years to do it. So we've really got to hurry up and get things moving.
Certainly, I will put few names to you, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Renuka. Thank you, Ambassador Craig, for joining us and such an enlightening presentation. For our final topic, we're going to be discussing on biodiversity liaison group. And it's my pleasure to say that this is a topic that wraps up everything we have talked about into a nice, sustainable bow. And what it's about is that in order to enhance coherence and cooperation in implementation, a liaison group was established between the heads of the secretariats of the 6 biodiversity-related conventions. And the BLG was formed in June 2004 and meets regularly to explore opportunities for synergistic activities and increase coordination and to exchange information. In order to talk more on this topic, I'm pleased to invite Dr. Srividhya Sukumar to let us know on an insightful presentation. Dr. Srividhya, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Jessica, and thank you, Dr. Renuka, for all your support. And actually, we're running behind the schedule, so I'm not going to take much time to talk more about exactly other things. So I'll go into my presentation. Well, as Ms. Jessica was mentioning, the whole thing swirls around one particular word of today, that's biodiversity. Where it spins from, it underpins from the ecosystem functioning and the provision of the ecosystem services essential for human well-being. I'm trying to make it. Yeah. So the biodiversity underpins the ecosystem functioning and the provision of the ecosystem services essential for the human well-being. The World Heritage properties are some of the most outstanding places on the planet that constitute a significant subset of the protected area system, critical for conservation of the ecosystem integrity and biodiversity. So the World Heritage Convention ensures a global commitment to preserving these exceptional places while respecting their cultural and the local connections. So the World Heritage Convention recognizes some of the World Heritage properties specifically for their outstanding biodiversity values, protecting many of the most ecosystems and the areas of the high biodiversity on the planet. That's, for example, number one, outstanding examples representing significant ongoing ecological and biological processes in the evolution and the development of the terrestrial, freshwater, coastal and marine ecosystems and communities of plants and animals. Number two, containing the most important and significant natural habitats for insight conservation of biological diversity, including those containing threatened species of outstanding universal value from the point of view of science and conservation. So biodiversity, that's how this biodiversity license group has evolved into. So the World Heritage Committee cooperates closely with the biodiversity related conventions individually and also through the mechanism of the biodiversity license group, that is BLG. The BLG is composed of the heads of the secretaries of the Convention of the Biological Diversity, CBD. These are the topics that we covered today. The Ramsar Convention, the Convention of the Migratory Species, CMS, the Convention of the International Trade of Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, CITES, the International Treaty of the Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture, and the World Heritage Convention. So a primary function of the BLG is to ensure coordination among the biodiversity-related conventions, and a copy of the BLG joint statement to the Millennium Summit that evolved in September 2005 on the importance of the biological diversity in the achievement of all the Millennium Developmental Goals. So the liaison group of the biodiversity-related conventions include, in order to enhance coherence and cooperation in implementation, a liaison group has been established between the heads of the secretariats of the 7 biodiversity-related conventions. The liaison group of the biodiversity-related conventions meets regularly to explore the opportunities for synergistic activities and increase coordination and to exchange information. That's knowledge sharing, knowledge enhancement. The mandate for establishing the liaison group of the biodiversity-related conventions was set out by the parties of the CPD in the decision of 7/27. So how did this establishment of BLG evolve into? Through the decision of 9/27, the conference of the parties of the CPD underlined the important role of the liaison group of the biodiversity-related conventions, encouraged more regular meetings, and invited a group to identify the options for improved implementation and cooperation among the biodiversity-related conventions. Through decision taken by 10/20, the conference of the parties to the CPD further underlined the need of the strengthened effectiveness and improved harmonization of the biodiversity-related conventions. So the mandate requested the biodiversity-related convention to review, where necessary, update working arrangements, and at the second retreat of the biodiversity-related conventions held in Geneva on 4th September 2011, a new modus operandi was agreed and signed by all the 6 biodiversity-related conventions that became the establishment of the BLG. Following which, there were 8 important meetings that were held, that were online or also on-site. And although following through of the 10 meetings that were held in different dates. So what did it work for? It worked on the application of the Addis Ababa principles and guidelines. The biodiversity-related convention liaison group had evolved an interactive applications on the Addis Ababa principles and guidelines for a sustainable use of the biodiversity. It explains the AAPG, that is Addis Ababa principles, and the relevance in the context of each of the biodiversity-related convention. In addition to providing information on the application of the Addis Ababa principles, the information contains a full text of the principles and the guidelines, relevant decisions, recommendations, and resolutions, and background documents or other related resources materials that had links and which are relevant to the websites. This joint collaboration between the biodiversity-related conventions were led by the Site Secretariat. So the preconditions for harmonizing of the national reporting to the biodiversity-related agreement subject to UNEP project on the knowledge management among MEAs led by the UNEP WCMC in partnership with the biodiversity related conventions call for a paper on preconditioning of the harmonization of the national reporting can help the countries understand the rationale for changes and for the harmonization and for the convention that were distributed during the secretariats. Now, this heritage convention can be leveraged by both UNESCO and other conservation stakeholders to promote conservation of the World Heritage Sites and integrate them with a larger developmental context. So a portfolio of 24 projects with a value of about $40 million, targeting 48 cities in 20 countries was evolved into, and they started working together with CI, FFI, TNC, WCES, IUCN, and WWF, among others, for the diversification of the financing. So the gradual diversification of the extra budget financing with the recent support obtained from the French Global Environmental Facility, MacFarlane Foundation, Grand Circle Foundation, Belgium, Italian, and United Nations governments, etc., etc., etc. They started working on innovating and conserving the finance mechanisms such that we are able to get there in our projects. So what did they work for? Neutral deal maker, brokering agreements for the World Heritage Sites as no-go areas for prospecting and extracting with the International Council of the Mining and Metals with the Shell International, help in negotiation for UN peacekeeping forces and rebel armies in regards to the World Heritage Sites concern. So intermediary, the World Heritage Site Management Agencies and the Shell International in identifying and carrying out business planning skills, and the sharing project was evolved into. This is one example that I'm taking about. So since we are running about time, we need to end it up. So I just try to give up a sum up of the whole thing, whole functionary which is involved in it. So achieving highlight with the objective rationale that the BLG is working towards achieving heightened international recognition. The World Heritage Convention was identified as a cross-cutting theme at the 5th World Parks in the Congress in Durban 2003, indicating an increased recognition of the convention as an action-oriented tool to be considered by the conservation of the stakeholders worldwide. So that's how the participation of the Biodiversity Convention Liaison Group led to the UN Convention of the Biological Diversity, CBD, and a signatory statement on the biodiversity and Millennium Developmental Goals for the heads of the State Summit in September 2005. So obtaining standing in deliberations in the meeting of the non-biodiversity intergovernmental agencies whose decisions may directly affect the World Heritage properties that is involved in the forum. So this is what is the whole thing, and it just goes on with the guiding principles that are being taken into forward for effective coordination and the prioritization of the national heritage work with its various partnerships that the center has evolved into national heritage strategy, and this strategy has been presented in the link which is given here. I will be sharing this link in the chat box. Thank you, Madam Jessica, for that time. I hope I have just valued everybody's time, and it's time for me to stop my presentation. Over to Madam Jessica. Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Srividhya. That was a very quick but quite concise and also, I don't even know, maybe informative. So for such a short time, I'm so grateful that you were able to bring us such a quality presentation. Thank you, Doctor. In order to summarize your points, we can see through your presentation that biodiversity is the variety of life on Earth. And this encompasses the multitude of species, ecosystems, and genetic diversity. Biodiversity plays to so many strengths. Ecosystem health, it ensures the resiliency and productivity of ecosystems. It undergoes genetic diversity. It provides the genetic resources that are necessary for breeding programs in agriculture and other fields, maybe such as medicine. It also provides economic benefits. Biodiversity supports industries such as agriculture, fisheries, and pharmaceuticals. And it has cultural significance as well as climate regulation, wherein diverse ecosystems help regulate the Earth's climate. Through the BLG, we can see that they're focused on biodiversity and in order to and they serve as a crucial platform for various stakeholders to collaborate and address the challenges and opportunities that are related to biodiversity conservation and sustainable use. They undergo information sharing. They facilitate the exchange of knowledge and information about biodiversity conservation research and best practices. We can see through the AAPG that there is a policy coordination going on in order to help protect biodiversity at local, national, and international levels. The BLG undergoes advocacy for biodiversity conservation and sustainable practices, thereby influencing decision makers and raising public awareness. We also have resource mobilization, wherein the BLG identifies and hopefully allocates resources for conservation efforts. Again, collaboration is one of the most important things when it comes to biodiversity. Nothing can be done alone. As it said, no man is an island. And so to summarize my summary, in a world facing unprecedented biodiversity loss, the BLG is a timely and essential initiative to address this global challenge effectively. And by bringing together diverse perspectives and expertise, the group can foster cooperation, it can advance policies, and it can drive actions that promote the preservation and sustainable use of Earth's precious biodiversity. Thank you again, Dr. Srividhya. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, all speakers. It was an amazing presentation as such, and with the wonderful, I think we covered almost every single topic of the conservation point of view that is involved in it. It's not only flora and fauna, and also about the marine, and also about the energy conservation of the resources which are being used, and also about the global warming and everything, all said and done, and cooling factor of it, even that was taken into account with Dr. Hans. And I think we have not left any leaf unturned. And thanks for all your time, and with much due respects. Yeah, thank you. So there was a special message from Dr. Renuka as well. Like she would like to extend her sincere thanks to all the speakers who have taken the valuable time on a Sunday evening, who have been a part of this show, this platform with us. Thank you so much. And if anybody would have liked to speak to us for any other factor, we are open and we will be able to address all your problems. And we would like to connect. Basically, that's about connection. And as I mentioned during the presentation as well, going ahead, how to get these targets, how to get these projects involved in the sense in action, as such, how to take action. So when you take action, normally when it comes to the collaboration, working together, and also the partnership, not only about that, even the financial support, which is being asked and requested by many of the countries that we are working for. And that's what is going to be the highlight of our COP28 participation over here in Dubai as well. So we will be taking it further to respective people across the country, and such that we will be able to deliver the goods, and we will be able to make your voices being heard at exactly where it has to be heard. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for all your time, and thanks for the brilliant team who has been helping us through and through. As such, my sincere thanks to each and every one of you, Mr. Pradeep Mehta, Mr. Craig, and Dr. Ishrat, and of course, Mr. Blossom and other speakers who have participated in the session, and also the other people, Dr. Laina, and also the other speakers who have joined us in the session. Thank you so much. Until we meet again. So next week, it's going to be a validation ceremony where we will be giving out the certificates for all the speakers. So kindly join us for the validation ceremony as well. It will be a great pleasure having you on board with us for the registration program. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
For the wonderful support. You have been always a treasure and will remain so, I think.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear.